very different now in 2025. Men are conditioned by their fathers and that generation, which is to be a husband, to be a partner. You provide, you protect. That's not really cutting it anymore. And then for us women, we're dealing with other issues that our mothers didn't necessarily help. So we're navigating all of these roles with 70s, 80s brains and nervous systems coming into these modern relationships going like, this might have been enough for my mom. This might have been enough for my dad. This was enough for my mom. This was enough for my dad. And it's not working.
Welcome to Understand Your Man. I'm Nathan Joblin, co-founder of Modern Wisdom Press and author of the book Trapped, The Responsible Man's Guide to Personal Freedom and Happiness.
And I'm Natasha Senra Pereira, a psychotherapist with over 20 years in the field. I bring the perspective that we as women need to heal and ground ourselves in our own energy so that we make space that invites our partners forward to connect us in the intimacy and safety that we crave, that we deserve.
As well as an understanding of the varied needs operating for men, including to feel admired, respected, and needed.
This podcast aims to build a bridge between men and their female partners by offering an understanding of why your man may not be showing up in the way you know he's capable of.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Nathan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm excited because I get to talk to you about how can we better understand you men, Nathan? What is it that we're missing?
Okay, and just a little behind the scenes as well as I don't necessarily know what questions are coming my way, right? Part of this is perhaps catching me in awkwardness and letting that represent the male experience. And other times it might just be to like really kind of push me in a good way to see what's happening, to look at what the initial response is, but then also together to see what's behind it. And so all in all, I think that's pretty exciting.
I think that's great because it is really organic in the sense that we spoke about the fact that women, generally speaking, are socialized or conditioned or spend a lot of time with women as we're growing up in the sense that we're relational. We're figuring out like what we're thinking, what we're feeling. We're encouraged to some extent to speak about it, share about it, figure it out with other women. Generally speaking, again, that's a different experience for men who are oriented to more so compete against each other, push against each other, razz each other, level each other up, not necessarily connect in the same way. And so because women, that's what we do. When you walk in the door after work, I assume that you have a structure to contain my feelings, my needs, my desires, what's going on. And I'm going to interact with you in the same way that I have been conditioned to do with all of these women in all of my life. How does that land for you when you walk in the door? I have feelings to share.
I know that. I know this experience. Now that from the place I am now, I would observe that oftentimes walking in that door and you, the partner, assuming that there's a container, is missing the previous step of when I found time for my own container. And so I know this experience deeply of there not being transition between work and home. Maybe there's a drive or a commute or whatever. But I think this goes back even to the first episode when you asked me a question about the origins of patterns and such. And I talked about just the lack of transition really from sitting at a desk in school to sitting at a desk at work. It's fairly seamless for us. And so I think even, that's a larger experience. Even in this daily experience, I think that for me, for a long time, I was missing that piece of myself, before I stepped in the door, or once I stepped in the door, just to slow down. And it could even be with partners. I know that we'll talk about this. We can do this together. We can slow down together. But assuming that there's a container for you is probably ultimately triggering a lot of my people-pleasing tendencies where I am feeding on, I guess, status, if we get into the deeper hierarchy of needs and stuff, but feeding into status that I can be wherever I need to be and serve whoever I need to serve at the time. And so it just drops me into my doer what I call my doer, DOER, my doing person. I'm there to do, to exist in the world without having any, in reality, having a sense of what I want.
And that's the piece. I know you mentioned being a people pleaser. And if women are listening to this and they're like, well, my partner isn't a people pleaser, he's got more of a fight stance or a flight stance or, right, a flow stance, which is, having a couple drinks after work or scrolling on the phone. But what you said that's common to all men in this category that we're talking about is the doing. When they get home, it's still, how am I performing? How am I providing? How am I giving? Because that's the conditioning they have, not so much how am I receiving, relating, connecting. Which is, us women, it's not that we don't do, it's not that we don't provide, it's not that we aren't doing 100 different things all day and have our own careers and kids to manage. But there is space in our container to be filled up. And for that, it's how do we relate? So we expect that you men want the exact same thing when you get home.
Yeah, that word relate. It's a great word. It's not one that comes to mind for me. And the fact is that we are relating when we get home and we're, face to face, partners are face to face, they're relating. But I wouldn't be aware of that fact necessarily. I'm reacting, not relating.
Or serving
Mm-hmm.
and giving, and that's how you relate.
Sure.
Do you want me to start the barbecue? You want me to look after little Jimmy? Do you need me to bring anything in from the car? Relating for us is, I want you to hear about the fight I had today with my best friend or the phone call I had with my mom. Does that feel for you men that that's relating to us by sitting for 25 minutes and hearing every nuance of the conversations we've had today and how that made my heart feel? What happens for you when I give you that definition of relating?
Well, I must be trying to get out of it because I'm thinking about all the other things I have to do.
Boom, boom. We're still in that mode of, what can I do to fix it? What can I do to accomplish? What can I do to make things more comfortable? Not how do I slow down to relate to you and to help co-regulate your nervous system. Does that make sense? So your initial reaction I'm hearing is, what is it that she wants? And oh my God, I have all these things to do.
Yeah, it's basically a continuation of putting out fires from the workday. That's the seamlessness part of it. And for me personally, that's my challenge at adapting. Adapting. Look, I'm probably using the wrong words there. At navigating, that's not the right word either. Being present. My challenge at being present there was insurmountable because I didn't even know the question existed. That this is what a healthy, mature relationship involves, is slowing down together. I think, really around raising kids, how that just is such an easy way to be going all the time. And I fully understand the purpose and the benefit of what you're saying. And so I would look to you through your experience to offer some ways to create that space upon coming home, because it's just not naturally there. It really takes intention from both parties. Both parties have to be on the same page. If one person's not there, then it's for naught.
And I appreciate the piece, though, around what's going on in your mind and how you're operating and functioning when you basically come home. So it's not enough to just be like, I need to relate this way. And now that I get my partner, my male partner, he's putting out fires all day. How do I provide? How do I get things done? But I need to relate. This is not about coaching your man on how to slow down when he walks in the door so that you get what you need. This is about understanding, oh, these are my needs and this is how I relate. And now I get to hear about, the man in my life might not be wired the same way, might not be conditioned the same way, might not have the same experiences, practice, or even the same needs as me. This is just a conversation about, how do you think and feel about this? And how do I think and feel about this? And what do we need? Because the truth is, and a lot of female clients of mine don't like it when I say this, he may never relate to you in this way. That might not actually be comfortable or safe for him. Can you two negotiate what that need is for you? And can you be empathic, understanding, and compassionate that he doesn't either have those skills, terrifying for him, or quite honestly, he doesn't even see the point because it's never filled him up. So this isn't about us training each other. This is about slowing down to be like, do you even need this? Do you even want this? And how important is this for me? And if it's really important for me, how do I communicate that to you in the way knowing that you want to provide, you want to make me happy? How can we do that other than you staring in my eyes and talking for 25 minutes about what Helen did to me today at work? I see you laughing. What's coming up for you,
No,
Nathan?
I mean, I feel all that. I understand, and I'm really keying into the word "we." You
We.
used a lot of pronouns in there, a lot of yous and I's, and I think that's not the starting point. I think, you mentioned that a guy might not be able to, right? And so when we're saying you, is like you're asking me to do something I don't know how to do. But if it's we, that's a lot softer approach, and I'm not having to necessarily figure something out on my own in that moment. And so the we is really rising up. It also feels good just in the sense that it's a shared responsibility or a shared goal instead of just as we started, this is like, I walk in the door, I don't have a transition. It feels better than it feels. Coming home should be we. Coming home should be a we scenario.
We. And I'm glad we're just getting that out of the gate. It's like, this is not just about getting our needs met and how do we do that in a way, right? It's like, what are our needs collectively as a couple? And some things I'm going to get from you and some things I'm not, based on the way that we're built, based on what we're willing to negotiate and what we can. The other thing about a we is usually by the time people come into my office, the we is so decimated that there isn't even a starting point because there's so much distance, separation, anger, and resentment. So to start off by negotiating, you need a transition time. What are your needs, darling? We're not even having that conversation.
Wow, this is
That's
intense.
the first
Yeah,
question.
this is intense. I feel like what. Tell me if I'm mistaken, but what you're framing is a situation that's pretty far down the road. When you're asking if there's a we, I feel like there's a lot of history there already.
I'm not even sure if it's down the road, but even coming to listen to something like this, if you're white knuckling it and it's like, I just need to learn about transition times and then I'll get my needs met, I want to slow us down right now.
Yeah.
It's I'm here listening to this because I love my partner. I want to understand him because the we that we currently have is not working out for either of us. That's the starting point. So, what ears are we using to listen to this? Right? I said before, women, we're conditioned to learn how to get our needs met, occasionally covertly. I don't want to be like, if I give him a 5-minute transition time, or if I give him a 45-minute transition time when he gets home, then things are going to work out. It's, why do I need to understand that my partner needs a transition time? What is his day like? What is my day like? And what is it that I need? And how do we help each other?
Mm-hmm. Well,
And then you and I can talk about tips.
yeah. No, I have a question about this because both parties have careers and work and come home, and I hear about I think about transition time on an individual basis, and then the we time as well, and that really does feel like it's filling up the evening. Um, so yeah, that's just what I'm thinking about. It's like I mentioned this earlier. I'm thinking about all the things to do, right? Um, there's I just I'm a little confused about how to fit all of that in.
And here we go. This goes back to the relating. And it's not even that both partners are working full time. I remember when I was on maternity leave with both kids, and this is just my personal experience, it was easier for me to go to work. I didn't need as much transition time than when I had my baby and my partner, right? My husband came home and I was like, take this child from me immediately.
I
Right? Because
understand. I know I wasn't trying to minimize that. I was just trying to paint a picture where both parties are walking in the door, and then what?
Fair, right? But it's this idea of we're transitioning out of whatever role, work role, whatever role, into we role,
Well put.
regardless of what we're
Well
doing.
put. Yeah.
And
Transitioning.
this is the fundamental of there's a we here. Because Nathan, you talked about, and we talked about it last time, where it's like men are conditioned by their fathers and that generation, which is to be a husband, to be a partner. You provide, you protect, you oversee, putting out fires. That's not really cutting it anymore in these types of relationships where women are looking for connection in a different way. And then for us women, we're dealing with other issues that our mothers didn't necessarily help us with, in the sense that, like, they didn't really ask as much relationally from their partners back in the 60s, 70s, and even 80s. Very different now in 2025. We have different demands on us as women, and we require different things also. So we're navigating all of these roles with 70s, 80s brains and nervous systems coming into these modern relationships going like, this might have been enough for my mom. This might have been enough for my dad. This was enough for my mom. This was enough for my dad. And it's not working. And so there's a new we that has been formed in couples that we weren't raised with. So it's not a matter of just understanding if I do A, B, and C transition times, those things are helpful. We're going to talk about them. But first, fundamentally giving each other a pass that, like, you might not even know what the fuck I'm talking about. When you say that, like, you just need to walk in the door and, like, decompress for a minute, we're like, what are you decompressing from? So this is where I wanted to ask you what it feels like all day, every day with the male mindset of put out fire, put out fire, put out fire, provide, get stuff done, compete, compete. What was that early working life like for you when you were just starting a family, keeping a family going to work, and really not even understanding what your own needs might have been?
I am aware that the qualities of work that our parents and even grandparents, perhaps, the story of work was different. And there was a support structure inherent in work and longevity and stability. And that does not exist anymore for most people. And we're seeing enormous federal layoffs. Government jobs are really and the most stable jobs, some of the most stable jobs, and not so much anymore. And so I recognize that my generation, we are in a different place and the questions are different. And there is a lot more sense of fight or flight and survival that I've experienced throughout my career. And I also recognize the opportunity in a way that didn't exist before in terms of my role as a man. In that I can have two options. I can have my father's generation's options, which suggested stability and structure and defined gender roles, right? Roughly speaking. Or I can choose this one, which is more fluid, but there's a chance for co-creation and real mutual support and recognition of the skills and talents and experience of the other partner. That feels really good. And so I'm choosing today. I'm choosing today versus 30 years ago, in terms of my roles and my navigation of work and personal life. I just think it's much more rewarding, and I think that there's a lot more freedom to be accessed, personal freedom to be accessed there, working in healthy, mutual, balanced relationship and support of the family.
And now, what if we are with a partner that doesn't even understand that there's a difference between how their dads grew up and the structures and supports around them and current day, that relationships require something different, that there is a choice to make? And then how do they navigate that? Was it easy for you? You just flipped a switch and you knew how to be a modern man in partnership?
No, it took many years of slow self-destruction until I hit what was it's true though. It's true.
I
And
know.
until what I found to be my bottom, in terms of my experience, I was drinking way too much. I was single. The kids were, teenagers in college, and so I thought that it was my time to shine. And that just wasn't at all the case because that's not how life works. And so it took me recognizing that my experience could be flat, for the rest of my life if I didn't do something to show that I cared about myself. And so it wasn't unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, but it wasn't a relationship that opened my eyes to that. It was my own sense of self-destruction, which then, created the seed of self-worth because I had to make that choice.
I think that that's a really important one that even brings us back to the idea of like, are things so far gone
Yeah. Well, you
in
know
this
what
sense of,
I want to say also though, I did try to make self improvements earlier, and I found that I was doing it for other people. In terms of curbing and managing my behavior, I was doing that because it was asked of me. I was acting up, and no one wants to see someone they care about self-destruct in front of them. And so there was the request, for example, that I stop drinking beer, when I come home from work. That was my transition. That was an unhealthy transition. And I did it successfully, however, not for long term, because I wasn't doing it for myself. And so then slow resentments built up, right? Because, oh, look, I'm doing this for someone else. It's not, those aren't the words that were in my mind, but that was the feeling inside of me. And so unfortunately, I didn't have the skill set to represent myself and take care of myself in the relationship. It took being out of it and many hard years before I kind of evolved personally into a healthier place. And and I don't want that to be a downer for anybody. We're here to help people speed along that process or perhaps to avoid it.
but I appreciate the sharing because again, it's this conversation about if we don't have models and that's the relationship we're having, the one that our dads and grandfathers had. But this is the type of relationship that can be successful, understanding that the roles are different, the structures are different, the supports are different. Anytime there's a need for growth and change, usually what precedes it is collapse or rock bottom. And it needs to be the individual that goes, okay, I need to choose how to do this. But then who helps us learn what those skills are? We didn't have them before. And that's what I meant when I said it's not just about transition time. It's not just about tone of voice. It's really about what is going on for this man that I love. Because I don't know about you, but did you say to the mother of your children, you know what, sweetheart, I just don't know what it is that you want. I don't really have any help or scaffolding about what's going on. So I'm just going to have a couple of beers after work and hope this all goes away and it gets figured out. Because that's what I hear from most men.
Yeah, I would say that there was a lot of silence and quiet resentment. I think we're saying the same thing. Yeah, it's
Yes.
it's rough. It's rough, and it's a real hard those roles that we assume create these really really formidable silos in the home.
And so when we notice our men, drinking a couple of beers or just staying out and not coming home or being angry when they come in, or like you said, just silent, it's not just about teaching them skills. It's about trying to create a space to be like, what's going on? And if there's already been so much resentment and there's not even a we there, how do we even start that conversation?
Yeah, I think it just the we is just surfaced here, because as a reference you made earlier, like because as an I'm white knuckling my experience, right? So I have to get out of that if there's going to be progress. And the we feels very supportive, and I'm sure it's tricky to carry off because oftentimes when we're talking about we, all of a sudden we find ourselves defending our positions about why my opinion should be the we opinion. uh, so that's a whole other thing. But the concept of we as the entry point feels really good.
And why this conversation was important, because if we're just coming in to learn tips and tricks and figure out what's happening, it's I trying to get something out of we instead of slowing down to be like, who's the other I in this relationship? And I appreciate you sharing that men don't generally share. They don't even understand what the structure is. And I'm not putting you down as in the sense that like men don't get it. It's that they're doing what they were taught to do. And now modern relationships are asking for a different structure, different supports, different level of relating and connecting. So how do we help each other do that? And the first step is, do we both want to even get back to a we? So that's probably a good place to stop today. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a good one. I feel I didn't even really have these issues on my mind, but I feel cleansed a little bit. So I guess that's always there, or else it's my muscle memory. It's like, that younger Nathan who was fighting for survival, or so he thought, was he's still in me.
And that younger boy is in all of our men, and they don't even know it. And so when we talk about a we, it's younger female me wanting to get something from this man, and that younger boy in that man really trying to be seen, admired, and validated by that woman. That's the we we're talking about. Okay, we'll talk more next time, yeah?
Thank you. Have a great week.
Thanks, you too.
And that's the show. We'll be back next week with new insight and clarity in building a bridge of understanding between men and women in partnership, leading to the deeper connections we all seek. In the meantime, please subscribe to Understand Your Man wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you found any of this inspiring or helpful, please leave us 5 stars and a positive review. Remember, sharing your opinion as a listener is the best way for others to find us and, hopefully, begin to engage the tips and practical guidance offered here in their own lives in new and exciting ways. If you would like to send us a question or suggest a topic for discussion, feel free to reach out via email at understandyourmanpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.